welcome to Leadership and Reinvention, the podcast for leaders on a journey filled with twists, turns, and new possibilities. I'm Marissa Prazen, and along with my co-host Mike Cloutier, in each episode we explore the moments that spark transformation, challenge perspectives, and redefine success. Whether you're making a career shift or looking to lead with impact, this is your space to rethink, pivot, and grow. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Leadership and Reinvention. And if it's your first time joining us, thrilled to have you here. And if you're coming back for a repeat visit, also thrilled to have you here. How you doing, Marissa?
I'm great, Mike. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I'm absolutely thrilled with our guest today. Jennifer Meldrum has joined us, and very excited about hearing about her story. I will give you just a brief insight as to we met about 10 years ago, and I was in the early stages of starting a consulting practice, and Jen had recently left a role and was doing the same thing, working on her new business. And we became instant friends, business colleagues, and continue to have a tremendous business relationship across a couple of different businesses. So, I will say that she is without a doubt the greatest networker I've ever met in my life. People have said I'm pretty good at it. I don't hold a candle to her. But I think what really is most engaging for me about Jennifer is that it's one thing to develop a network, but it's another thing to make sure that you're always delivering on the things you say you will bring to the table for the people in your network. And Jennifer, Jen, never lets us down. A tremendous achiever, incredibly passionate about our business, and just really dedicated to the people in her network. So, Jen, welcome. And as I said, thrilled to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm just taking that all in, Mike. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm really excited to be here. Love you both. I'm glad that you guys are doing this podcast and started it. I'm just very fortunate and blessed to be on it. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right into it. Tell us, in your own words, tell us about your journey to date. And we're excited to hear it.
Absolutely. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to share it. It's funny, as you meet different people in our industry, you kind of go through that story every now and again, but it's lovely to repeat it because it's a journey that's always ends up somewhere positive. And I think that's one of the things we'll talk about today. But my journey, like where to start, I've been in the industry almost 28 years. And I remember my first day on the job as a sales rep in the London-Windsor corridor. My first day of training, you guys will laugh, was February 14th, Valentine's Day in 1998. I'll never forget that. And I think everybody's had a training session at the Markham Suites in Toronto. I think everybody's been there before. That was my first training session. And it was great. And I will even say, like, it was back when, jobs weren't advertised on the internet. I don't even know if there was the internet yet. Jobs were posted on, in newspapers. And I remember graduating from school, which was at Laurier. I went for a business degree at Laurier. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but people had said to me, you're a lot like your dad. Like my dad was in life insurance sales his whole life. He's like, you've got this ability to sell. And I didn't really know what that meant at a young age. You're like, what does that even mean? But they said, you've got the right demeanor for sales. And I'm like, okay. So I thought I'd like navigate and investigate. And I looked into life insurance sales. Of course, I looked into other things. And then I saw this job post, not a post, but actually an ad in the newspaper that said pharmaceutical sales rep. And I remember thinking, I've always been interested in healthcare. It was actually, business or healthcare. What was I going to do at school? I'm like, I don't even know this industry. I was completely naive to it. But I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. Got, applied, sent my resume in physically to the location, got an interview and was hired pretty much on the spot, which again was kind of the time then. And I'm so glad that someone took a chance on me. They saw something in me that they thought, yep, she can do this. And that's where I started. So I think many people's journeys, at least in our industry, has started in a sales rep role. And I think, maybe like others, probably both of you, I knew pretty early that I didn't want to stay in that role. I liked the role. I enjoyed it, but I also saw more. Like I saw more things that I wanted to do. And I was lucky enough to be hired by an organization, which was a contract sales organization at the time. So working with pharma companies and partnering with them. But I knew pretty early that I wanted to do more. And I let the people know that I was working for that I did want more. I said I wanted to do more things. I wanted to be involved in more opportunities, different roles. But I was kind of learning at the same time. So I'm putting my hand up, but not really knowing what I'm putting my hand up for. So kind of that, blind faith that it's going to all work out. And it was fortunate that the organization was really kind of on its growth phase. So they were really growing during that time. So I was very fortunate to take on some of those additional roles in sales leadership, in operations, in business development, commercial leads, international expansion. Like I actually got a chance to do literally everything in that organization, which was a real blessing. I don't look at that as anything but an amazing learning experience. And that was a 20-year duration. So I was with that organization for 20 years, which I'm very proud of, very happy about that. Learned a ton, learned a lot about not only the organization I worked for, but all the different organizations that we worked with and worked for and partnered with. So it was a really interesting journey to see the industry from so many different organizations, different leaders, different people like yourselves that I met over the years, building that network. But I will say, as I was kind of coming up on like my 18th, 19th year with that company, I was starting to get a bit of like a knot in my stomach. It was just a bit of like, something's not quite sitting right. And I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I definitely felt it. I didn't really know what to do with it at the time. I just was aware of it. And this is now, LinkedIn is now fully, baked. People are on LinkedIn all the time. And there was someone that I didn't know, but she had posted something on LinkedIn that I thought was really compelling. It spoke to right what I was feeling at the time. It really hit home. And I messaged her. I didn't know who she was, but I just said, I just want to thank you for posting that. It was so inspiring and really what I needed to hear right now. And of course, our industry, as we typically are, she was very gracious. She said, well, let's meet for coffee, right? She ended up being a high-level executive. I think you both know her, Anne Swan. Anne. So she was a high-level executive at Roche at the time, but never an issue. She said, yes, let's meet for coffee. And we did. And I just kind of shared with her, like, it was one of those organic, like she was instantly like a friend, kind of what you said, Mike, like you meet people and you're instantly connected. And I shared a little bit about my journey. I shared a little bit about how I was feeling. And of course, she gave lots of advice. But one piece of advice that she gave me that was it was like literally what changed everything for me. And what she said was, if you've become the brand of an organization and you don't own it, it's probably time to leave. And I thought, oh, that was so compelling because that was literally my story. Like I had done a lot of great work for this other organization. I was very proud of it and happy to do it. But I really had become like people thought of me and they thought of that company. And that's a thing I was proud of, but it was starting to change. And the dynamic of that organization was also changing. The vision was changing. Where they wanted to focus their efforts was changing. So this piece of advice that I got from Anne was literally perfect in terms of timing and what I needed to hear to kind of get me to like, okay, is there action? Is there action that's going to happen here? So I sat with it for a little bit. And of course, you have to do all the, analysis in your head. What does this mean for me? And I didn't really know yet. I just said, okay, I want to take this seriously. But I did complete my 20-year anniversary with that company. I felt it was like empowering to do that. I was very proud of that. But after I celebrated that 20 years, I did resign. I resigned shortly after. And I didn't really know yet what I was going to do. I was not completely prepared for starting something new. I just knew that I needed to step away. So I did that again in faith that something would happen and work out. But like all of us, I definitely went through some imposter syndrome. I left and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I even employable? Is anybody going to want to work with me? Like, you just don't know, right? You think you've built these networks and these connections, but you're not quite sure when it actually happens, if it's going to result in some positive action. And I did some interviewing. I was honest. I kind of looked for some roles. I applied for some roles and got some great interviews, great discussions, and actually got a couple of offers. And I was very happy and proud of that. And one of the offers was amazing. It was a female leader that was, had her own company, and she was looking for kind of a VP of business development for North America, which I was comfortable doing. But what I found myself as I was evaluating that opportunity was I'm kind of going into the same thing I just came from, which was working for someone else, which even though it may have been a different experience and wonderful for all the reasons, I still felt like like, if I'm not going to try something on my own now, I probably won't. If I don't do it, I probably won't do it. So I said no. I said no to those roles. And then kind of Peak was born. So Peak was born at that time. That was 2018. And, you're a bit nervous and scared for all the reasons, again, like I mentioned. I wasn't nervous about my ability to do the job of kind of what Peak does, because I had been doing it for 20 years. I knew how to build this business, but I was doing it like on my own. Yeah, I have a business partner, as you guys know, but doing it like two of you versus kind of walking into an existing structure. So building a structure, building the business, all the stuff that goes into that, which you both know, that was scary, but not something that I was really scared of. I was just like, okay, I think I can accomplish this. What I was most nervous about was, will people come? Like, will the business build? Will customers want to work with us? And we didn't know, right? You go for it and you see what happens. And we were very fortunate that what I was mentioning before, where people had branded me with this other organization, when I left, they're like, well, we want to work with you. Like, you're the one that we were working with before. We want to work with you. And so we were very, very fortunate to get customers right away, which was lovely and felt good. And it felt like, okay, all that work that we had done before was actually returning to us, which was awesome. And then it was just about building from there, 2018 till now. It's been a constant build, getting brand awareness, getting a seat at the table, being invited to the table, and winning the business. It's a whole process. And I've enjoyed every moment of it. Like, some people have asked me, and you might as well, it's like, do you wish you did it sooner? I don't. I actually don't. Like, I think it happened as it was supposed to. I think I was ready for it. I think I had all the skills that I needed. I had the confidence that I needed, even though that wavered a little bit. And I think it was just the right time. I think it was the perfect time for this journey to take place. But now I can say, like, oh, I'm just so glad I did. I'm so glad I went with my gut feeling, went with that reaction, and did it. And now it's like every day's a learning, right? We're still evolving, we're still learning, we're still building. But it's wonderful I wouldn't have changed anything about the whole journey. And all the people I've met along the way has just been, Mike, you included, and Marissa, you too. Like, it's just amazing. I think we'll get into that a little bit later, but just very, very fortunate and blessed. Couldn't be happier.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And you're right. I'd heard parts of that story, but not all of it. So thank you so much. What role did family play in making this decision?
Yeah. Great question. Certainly. And, I can't speak for everyone, but my family is my rock, right? Like, that's what everything flows from, my faith in my family. And so nothing was done flippantly. Nothing was done, oh, that's a good idea, let's go do it. It's all about reflection, what's needed for the family, what's appropriate, where do I feel guided to, like, all these things matter. And certainly this decision, like, and I'll be honest, like, I was the main breadwinner when I worked for that other organization for 20 years. So I was bringing in the majority of the revenue into the home. So this decision to leave, and at this time, it wasn't like, traditional pharma where you leave and you still get a package. There was no package, right? I left, like, literally, pay stopped, that was it. And we were in a situation too, from a family perspective, that when my kids were younger and I was working kind of, a lot, my husband decided actually to stay home. So my husband stayed home with our kids while I was kind of working, and they were in their younger years. So when this was going on, and I'm like, I think I want to do this. I think I want to step back and start something new. I wasn't even ready to start something new, just step back. Two things. One is that my husband, and even my children now, because they were older at the time, they knew that I needed it. Like, things were changing with the organization that I was with. And they're like, Mom, like, you don't seem as happy. You seem a little bit more stressed than you should be. Like, they're like, yes, like, if you need to do this, like, do this. So that encouragement was like, they saw that it was best for me. And the second thing was, my husband said, okay, if we're going to do this, like, I'm going to go do something to bring in revenue. Right. So he went and worked while we were building Peak. And so I'm very lucky and very fortunate and blessed to have that dynamic, to make it work, because it's not easy. Not everybody can do that. If you're not in a relationship or not married, like, it's a little bit more stressful. But hopefully you've got that dynamic at home that can allow you to test things, to try ideas together, to have the support system. And what I will say is, after we started Peak, like, probably like 6 months in, even less than that, actually probably even less than that, probably almost right away. Like my family said to me, like, you're just so much happier. Like you're actually, like your stress level has come down. He's like, even though you're building something and that's stressful in its own right, you just seem like this is where you were supposed to be. And all that other stress that you were holding isn't for you. And it's interesting because I didn't even think I had that much stress until you step away from it. Like I didn't realize what was building up in me until I was like, oh, it's not there anymore. Like, oh my, I didn't know how much that was actually debilitating. So that was really interesting. And a good thing that I now share with people is really self-reflecting on a regular basis to say, like, where are you at? Because sometimes we can get used to that level of stress and you just operate in it and you think you have to, and maybe you don't. And maybe you should be looking at how to alleviate it.
Yeah, it's such a great point, and thank you for sharing that part of it. Two things: one, the communications, and just that making sure that your family, your network, like you're speaking very openly, transparently, and it's a dialogue, right? You're getting feedback, you're trying, and because you're really searching, right? And to have the support while you search is really powerful. So that's wonderful. And I think the whole thing around stress and effort and work, it's interesting to me that there are times where I've been so incredibly busy and felt so light. And other times when I really wasn't overly busy and felt like I was burdened, and that happiness quotient part, whatever, you want to call it, is just so critical. And to get feedback is really nice because there were times, I guess, and maybe, you could share a little bit about the difference between when you feel something and when you know something, is it the feedback that helps, or did you have an internal mechanism to say, no, this feeling is real versus, I'm not sure?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm sure it's different for everyone. But for me personally, I feel like when I know something, like I know it, like deep in like my gut, like I know it. And how it plays out still has to figure itself out. But I kind of know that something's about to change or something's going to happen, or this is the right way to go. Like I definitely have that in myself. And then I think you're encouraged by the other things around you. So your friends and your family will say things and you're like, oh, that just validates what I already knew to be true. But it was just like but it's so good, because then it's like it gives you an extra oomph, like boost in your motivation to keep going, because you're not doubting yourself. But I will say too, like as we get older, I think this just comes with wisdom and time. You start to really trust yourself more. Like you just get a better sense of, I've made mistakes. I've learned from those. I've seen things. I've pulled those experiences together. And now you know something and you act on it and it's returned for you. So the more you do that, the more you trust it, right? The more that you trust, this is the right way to go. This is the right thing to do.
And what about, I know from my own experience in starting my own business, there are these twists and turns that come along, these amazing opportunities, because as you're kind of exploring and building the business, people come into your life that you're like, oh, wow, that sounds exciting. And I'm personally finding it's almost hard to say no to so many of these things because they're amazing, right? You want to explore them. They sound so exciting. The first time in your life, you have this freedom to just go after all this really cool stuff. So as you were navigating and you guys were navigating the business, how did you decide, what were some of the things that you were going to pursue versus those that were more intentional of saying, no, I'm not going to do that? Help us understand some of those, because they're hard decisions as you're building a business, like where you're actually going to end up landing and what you're really going to stand for.
It's true. It's a great question, Marissa. And I think at the beginning, we were pretty certain of what our offering was going to be. So we had a bit of this is what we're going to do. This is what we know. This is what we know really well. This is what we can execute in excellence with. So we're going to focus on those things first, because that's what people would have known me for too, is this is what the services that we know her from. This is what we're going to focus on. So that was easy from a very focused perspective. But to your point, as we started to see some successes and had more opportunities, then you start engaging with other organizations. Mike, you and I met, all these different things. And so then it's to your point, it's exciting. And I'm a big believer in talk to everyone, because you just don't know what might be presented to you or what might happen from that discussion. Maybe nothing, but you still met somebody great and you still learned from them. So why not? So have as many conversations as you possibly have time for is what I would always encourage. But then I think it comes back down to, when you're starting a business, have sort of like your core, like what is for sure your sweet spot? What are your expertise that you definitely need to stick behind? Then what are the things that are interesting, and look at that and be open to all of it. Like be open and nimble and flexible, because you also have to listen to the market. Like the market might be like, okay, well, we know you do this, but do you do these things too? Because we really need these things. And if you can do those things, well, maybe that becomes part of your core. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's like, oh, it's not really my sweet spot. I don't feel like I can really go there, but I could recommend somebody. So understanding what you're good at and what you're comfortable with, I think is really important. And it doesn't happen all at once. I think it happens a little bit over time as you learn and you talk to these different organizations and different people and different opportunities. And just be comfortable with that. Like, don't feel like you have to be everything to everyone, because I think if you try to do that, you'll be miserable and you won't be able to actually do it well. So I think you need to kind of say, what can I do really well? And what can I maybe hand off to somebody that does it really well? Right. So understanding the various opportunities there. And if there is something that the market says, hey, we're looking for this and there's no option, like there's no other option, well, then, hey, maybe that's something you do add to your business. And that's exciting too. So I think it's just keeping open-minded to all of it. Again, back to the basics of like, what do you value? What do you bring to the table? Don't compromise on that. And then finding the kind of like the medium in between, right? And I think over our years, 8 years now together, we've got our core that's still there. It's still a majority of our business, but we do have some interesting things that we've added to our service offerings because it made sense. It made sense because the market wanted it. It made sense because we have great partners that we've kind of connected and collaborated with. So it's kind of building something that still feels like your own and represents you and your values, but you can do it with other people too. That's what I would say.
So good. And you've also touched on this importance of recognizing who you are at your core. That self-awareness is, I think, really, really important. And in talking, thinking about my own business, but also talking to other entrepreneurs and people who are doing these pivots and what we're talking about on the podcast, I think that's really key, is knowing yourself and taking the time to really understand who you are. And I think you've talked about that, both in terms of the entrepreneur, but also in terms of the business. So
Yes. I think that's important in every aspect of our life, to be honest, like is to really know who you are and what you stand for. And when you have that kind of locked and loaded, like the possibilities are endless in my mind.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And it's not, in the heat of what we're doing, sometimes it's hard to stand back of that and really be really totally honest with yourself about any changes that might be occurring or what's going on. You said earlier that people will ask you, do you wish you would have done this sooner? And I've had that very similar conversation. When you're known to have done something for such a significant period of time, and then you're known to be someone who's succeeding at something new or different, it's logical. And for me, and I'm wondering if it's the same for you, it's not so much would you have done it sooner, but what did you learn through that process that if you were to start to feel uneasy again, would you be able to accelerate the shift or change the way you shift? Like, what were the learnings that would make you maybe capable of moving quicker?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it's twofold. One is that getting to know who you are and what's important to you, and not just kind of showing up every day and doing the job and not thinking about it, like really saying, okay, is this rewarding? Am I enjoying this? Am I enjoying what I'm doing? Do I feel part of something exciting? I think that we need to be checking in with ourselves on a regular basis on that, because if I had done that probably sooner, that gut feeling probably would have come earlier, right? If I had done that sooner. The other piece I'll say is that, and I think this is true with almost everyone, you guys tell me if you agree. When we get into our careers, especially early on, I think we're encouraged to kind of put your head down and work, like put your head down and deliver, right? there's not a lot of questions being asked. It's like, there's tasks to be done, go do. There's important things to be, settled, go and get those things done. And I literally did that for 18 years. I would say the first 18 years I had my head down, was really valuing doing good quality work. I was excited about doing that. I was excited to get accolades for doing good work. But I had my head down. Like I think about like literally physically head down and like the blinders on, like on both sides. Right. And I think it took me too long to have like bring my head up. Like I just brought my head up, took the blinders off, and I'm like, oh, like this industry is really quite dynamic. Like there's a lot going on. And meanwhile, I was with an organization that was working with multiple companies. So I actually did have quite a perspective, but I still had these blinders on. And once I took those off and really took a look around and started to truly invest in learning about our industry in a bigger way, talking to more people, it was so empowering and so rewarding and so enjoyable. And I just feel like that's something I would always recommend and do recommend to people from the very beginnings of their career. Don't put your head down, keep your head up, still work hard, still do all the things, but keep your head on a swivel. Like just look, just keep an eye on what's going on. Not just because of what the opportunities could be, but you'll just enjoy it more. Like you'll just enjoy the whole experience more because you'll be getting more input from all the other sources. And sometimes we get so locked in. And sometimes those environments that we're locked in are not awesome. Like they're not great. They might not be a great culture. It might be a challenging situation. And we just get so locked in that we just miss the rest of what's going on in the world, but certainly even within our industry. And so for me, to your point, Mike, I just wish I had like put my head up sooner. I wish somebody had told me that, ahead of time to say, hey, keep your head up and look around and keep an eye on what's going on. And out of that came you talked about networking and why that's so important. For the first 18 years, I didn't really network. Like I didn't, because I was head down, focused on the job, even though my company had to stay sort of networked with the industry at large. I wasn't investing the time to do that because I was so focused on executing good work. And wow, when I brought my head up and started having these conversations, like, it's not just about us starting Peak. Like, I literally have made so many friends, so many great people, so many collaborators, so many partners. Again, that's what I wish I had done sooner, because that has changed my whole experience of what I do. So I think that's something that I would definitely say, just keep your head up, check in with yourself. If you're not feeling right about something, like dig into the why. And then hopefully that decision might come sooner for people.
Mm-hmm.
Building on that. Oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I just had to say that anyone watching this who knows you and hears you say that I wasn't really much of a networker, and now is going like, what? Like, how did you develop that skill? Okay. Yeah, it'd be like, I mean, like I said, we've known each other, 8 years plus or whatever. And when you just said it, like in my head just exploded off the back, kind of like, what? Like, anyway, but so to that point, I mean, it's interesting that, how important it is to what you're doing, and a skill set that you probably inherently had and did things that you weren't calling networking, but the things that it takes to be a great networker were things you were doing. They weren't in the package called networking. Yes. But I love the fact that you look back at it retrospectively and say, well, I wasn't doing any of that, because in the sense of what you do, yeah, you weren't, right? Yet the skill sets were underlying there. Go ahead, Marissa. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Well, speaking of networking, what's really amazing about your career path and your overall journey has been certainly, as you said, where you started, then starting your own company. But another big part of, and one of the key ways that you and I met actually was through your work with women leaders in pharma, the OPMA. I'd love to hear more of how that came to be, because an entrepreneur usually has more than enough to do trying to run their own company. And then you did these other, big things. I mean, you weren't just a part of them. You were really in leadership roles in both. They are in leadership roles in both of these. So I'd love to hear how that came to be and how that became a big part of the journey.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think it actually stems a little bit from what Mike was saying about, I didn't really think I was doing much networking before. And to your point, Mike, I was, but it probably not as intentional as I wanted to or thought I could. And then when we started Peak, and even leading up to starting Peak, like I just discovered, when I got my head up and looked around, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have all these great people I want to meet. And so I probably went like from 0 to like 100, right? So I'm like, I'm going to get like involved in everything. I want to do all the things. I want to like meet all these people. And I just had this like desire to like engage, because I felt like I was not engaged for 18 years. And I was just like, I can't wait to engage. So I put my hand up for everything, right? Like people were asking, like, I remember sitting around the room when the WLP was being, the WLP was born out of Montreal, but then they wanted to expand into Toronto. They had a call for like, who wants to be involved in this in Toronto? I'm like, I want to be involved. And then we're sitting around a table, a bunch of us, and well, who wants to like lead this? And I'm like, I'll do it. Right. So again, not really knowing exactly what I'm getting myself into, but I just was in that place where I just wanted to be a part of as much as I possibly could. Certainly their vision I loved. I was very much a proponent of that. Celebrating women leaders and connecting women leaders was wonderful for all the reasons. But it was really about just me wanting to be engaged as much as possible. And that had its wonderful journey. And I had 3 years as president there. That was my tenure there. And it was wonderful. Learned a lot, met a ton of wonderful people, hopefully got WLP on the map a little bit. I was happy with what we accomplished there and happy that it's continuing to flourish and grow, and certainly continue to support them. So that was lovely. But even prior to Peak starting, prior to Peak starting, like I started to volunteer with the OPMA, the Ontario Pharmaceutical Marketing Association. They've been around forever. You guys both know them. And I knew that they were doing some things. I thought, I'll put my hand up, see what I can do, be a part of it. And I was like a volunteer helping out here and there. And then, again, when this shift really happened, I'm like, I want to get more involved. I want to get really deep in there. And it just happened to be that there was a bit of a vacuum at the OPMA at the time, where there was the leadership was kind of changing, and there was a bit of a year where nothing was really going on. And so I think they were like, what do we do? And I'm like, I'll take it, right? I'll do something with this. And so I was excited to do that and jumped in. That was in January of 2020. So right before the pandemic started, I jumped in there. And then we navigated all through that, which is a whole nother podcast, I'm sure, for that. But nonetheless, really enjoyed that. And I love the OPMA. It's different than the WLP, but both learned from both, collaborated across both. Things that I learned from the WLP, I'd apply the OPMA and vice versa. And it all applied to Peak too. Like Peak gleaned from all of it. So I didn't really see that I was taking on multiple things. I just said, this is all helpful for all. Like everybody's benefiting from this. The WLP is, the OPMA is, and Peak is. All of it's kind of working together, and synergies were certainly there. And to your point, sometimes when you're starting a business, you think, okay, yeah, I'm going to be 100% focused on this. But sometimes you're building the business and it's not super busy right away, right? Like you're trying to build. So I had a little bit of time, and comparatively to when I was working for my other organization, I was really busy there. Like there was no way I was going to be able to take on, because I had too much. I was at 110% capacity there. Mm-hmm. So when I started Peak, I was like, I get to decide what I want to spend my time and energy on, right? So I got to decide what I had room for. And so I did. I decided to fill it with some of these things, which were so wonderful and appropriate at the time. And then I will say, after 2.5 years as the WLP president, and I was also president of the OPMA and running Peak, I was hitting about a max, because Peak was growing. The WLP was also growing. The OPMA was transforming. So I was kind of like, okay, now I'm starting to feel like I can't do everything to the level I want to do it. And so it just worked out that my tenure was changing with WLP, and that took a lot off my plate. So I feel very comfortable to still do the OPMA, which I'm lucky enough to still do, along with what we're doing at Peak. So it's all about, navigating where you want to put your time and effort, what you think is returning, not just for your business really, but for you, like what's giving you some joy, what's giving you some energy and motivation. And, Marissa, I just saw you the other night, literally going to these events, they are literally energizing for me. I love seeing people together. I love seeing people do what I didn't do, 10 years ago. I'm like, this is why we do it. This is why everybody should be coming to these events. Right. So it gives me a lot of energy, which I think just keeps me, ready to always be answering the call. When people are calling for Peak, they're like, okay, what's happening in the industry? Well, guess what? I know, because I've been engaging with the industry through all these different ways. So it just makes me better at my job for doing these things. And I think better as a person too. I've learned so much from so many people. It's high value for me.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that has been somewhat central to the conversations that we've been having around adaptability, clearly that's a part of what has occurred for you, and you've given us insights as to shifts, and either shifts you took or shifts that happened, and you adapted to them. Would you think, if you were just thinking about yourself in your past, do you consider yourself to be a very adaptable person, or is adaptability something you work on?
I definitely think it's something you work on. It does not come naturally to me. I would say that in the time that I was with the other organization for 20 years, I was very much like, this is how we do things. This is how it's done. And I know why. Now I can look retrospectively as to why. It was because I was so busy that anything different made more work for me, right? So anything that had to be different or change or evolve was like, oh my goodness, like I'm just barely, like my head's just barely above water. Like, how can we now do something different in a different way and start something new? Like, it literally was something I didn't want. I'm like, I don't want this. When you step back now and say, okay, for Peak, I get to decide what I want it to look like. I get to decide how adaptable. I get to choose that. And now that's what I crave. Like, I crave the opportunity to do something unique and different and evolve and improve and innovate, because isn't that the fun? Like, that's the fun. Like, that to me, that's what's so enjoyable about doing things on your own, is that you get to choose what you want to be adaptable to. And so I think that's a choice you make. But I think sometimes the circumstances can sometimes squash that. So again, good to reflect for yourself. Each person that's watching is saying, yeah, do I not like those things because it's too much work? Or am I in an environment that's actually fostering that? And can I make a difference there? Can I actually be the one to foster it as a leader, for example? So yes, I think it's something you have to work on. But then I think once you get a taste of it, and once you've done it and seen success in it, then I think it becomes like almost like your second nature. You become adaptable to all the things.
A learned skill.
Yeah.
A number of the folks that we've been speaking to on prior episodes have taken a shift and really done it as the sole proprietor, for lack of a better term, or at least certainly the person leading that has enough control to say it really is going to be the way they want it to be.
Yep.
You went into a new venture with a partner.
Yep.
And I'd be curious to hear about the process of how that all works in terms of making a shift like you made and doing that in a partnership.
Yeah, it was interesting timing because prior to me making my choice to leave the other organization, my partner already had made that choice for himself. But we had worked together closely for 10 years, but prior to that. So when I was kind of like, okay, I'm out, I'm looking for something else, we had kept in touch, and we're like, well, like, we essentially were the ones running this organization. Like, why don't we do this? Like, why not give it a shot? So there was something about familiarity. Like, there was a sense of like, I'm not starting something brand new, because there's like some consistency that I had with working with this person. Plus it was in a business that we knew really well. Like, I definitely felt I had done my 10,000 hours in this space. I knew it. So I felt like that was very comfortable. And I do say this to people that are looking at starting businesses. It can be a bit lonely. Like, it can be a bit like, if you don't have someone that's kind of with you or building with or whatever, like, you're doing it all on your own, which is still great and exciting and rewarding. But it can be like, I want to share this with someone, or I want to share the risk with someone, or I want to share the reward with someone. And I think that that's what I truly valued, is that I kind of, all of my years of experience was never solo. It was always with other people. And I think you guys both know me well enough. I thrive in that. I thrive with working with people and being with people. So for me, it was a natural decision to make this a partnership, because I wanted to do it. My partner wanted to do it as well. Why not? We both had this same, like, let's give it a shot. Like, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work. Like, that's the worst. And like, literally, we can still get jobs, right? So it seemed like a no-brainer for us. I wouldn't necessarily say that if somebody's got an idea and they want to launch it, that you have to go find a partner. It should be natural. I think if there's somebody naturally that you're working with, that it makes sense to do it, absolutely. And I'm glad that it worked out for us that way. But I must say, I think I would have still done it anyway. Like, I think I still would have done it. I didn't depend on that piece, but it was just a nice add on to the whole journey versus sort of being at it alone. And again, and this is probably one of the pieces of advice I'd say later that you might ask about is, as you're embarking on an entrepreneurial journey, if you're doing it on your own, and even if you're not, you should definitely like meet other entrepreneurs, like get to know that network, get to know other people that are in this space and lean on them, get to know them, support them, amplify them. They'll do the same for you, but don't do it in isolation, because I think that's when it can really fall apart. Like, I think if you're in isolation in any way, I think when the down times happen, like it's very tricky to pull out of them. And when you're in the good times, it's like you should want to share among others, right? And I think that's the piece that I would say is get to know that network, build on that network, depend on them, lean into them. You'll be surprised at how much they want to do the same for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that was part of what enriched our working relationship, was seeing someone who was going through. There were other partners available for us to work with, and we did from time to time. But I think it was the connection of saying, we're new and we're going through something. You're new and you're going through something. Yeah. There's a bonding kind of sharing thing that I think helped enhance that relationship. So I'm glad you touched upon that, because it's really, I totally agree. You really have to speak to a lot of people to really understand the journey you're on and to know you're okay.
Yes.
You're okay.
And you're not alone. You're not alone,
No.
even though it might feel like that sometimes. And sometimes you still have to make the decision alone, but you can get lots of good advice. You get lots of good people to bounce ideas off of, sounding boards. But you gotta be willing to put yourself out there and talk to these people and get out there with them. Because even if your business doesn't require you to network, you need a network of entrepreneurs when you are one. I believe that strongly.
The other piece I'd love to touch on is and we have actually touched on through the conversation, is navigating this uncertainty, right? Things are going to change continuously. Things are, you just don't know what's around the corner. What advice would you give somebody who is starting out, who's like, I've got this idea, but what if this doesn't work out? And you even mentioned earlier this whole, the concept of imposter syndrome. It's always there, right? Am I going to be able to do this? What advice would you give a new entrepreneur who's thinking about starting out in terms of navigating this uncertainty and getting through those tough times?
Yeah, it's a good question, Marissa. Like, I think, for me, I know the answer, like what worked for me, which is having like grounding, right? Like what grounds you so that when life gets all over the place, like what keeps you okay, right? And like I mentioned before, like that's faith and family for me. So no matter what was going to happen, all the uncertainty, and I've had many of them, I don't get scared. I just get like, okay, I'm feeling this feeling. Okay, let's remind myself what's important, like what's actually important when it all is said and done, right? It's not really about my job. It's not about my business. It's about all the things that I've mentioned. So I think that having that grounding is absolutely key. And I think that's important for, again, life in general, but certainly when you're embarking on something that can have twists and turns, can be highly successful or highly unsuccessful. So what's going to keep you grounded? Because you shouldn't be building your identity into this business. Like your identity is not there, right? So we're knowing yourself well enough to kind of what is my grounding, I think is something I would always recommend. The other piece I would say is really understanding what success means to you. And success is different for everyone, right? Every individual working in corporate, entrepreneur, or the like. What does success mean to you? And I think that can evolve a little bit over time for sure. But I think as you're embarking on a new business, you want to know, like, okay, what does it mean for me to be successful? Because the only way you start to get uncomfortable or imposter syndrome is if you feel like you're not being successful, right? That's when that starts to come out. So really look at what's defining your success. And again, for me, it might be slightly different. When I started Peak, it really wasn't about, oh, I want to have 1,000 reps across North America by this time, and I want to be working with 100 different clients. Like it never came to that. It was more of like, I want some freedom to be able to decide what I want to do, when I want to do it. I want to do good work and I want to build good relationships. And I believe that will help build the business, right? So that's what success meant to me. And it still does. Those are the same still success factors. Now, do I have goals? Of course, I have goals that I try to achieve and I try to reach, but success is not necessarily defined by some of those other things that might be like a financial specific goal, for example. but you have to know that for yourself. It might be financial for someone else, right? So you have to kind of understand. And what's good in doing that process is it kind of comes back to my first point, which is, well, what do I value? What are my grounding values? And so then it kind of builds together so that when there are uncertain times, and there will be, right? When there are some dips and curves along the way, remember, like, okay, why did I do this? Like, what was the reason I did this to begin with? What's the absolutely most important things in my life? Is it this? Is it not? And why, right? And then I think that when you have that sort of settled, when there's the downturns, you don't get so far down. Like, instead of it being like this, it's like softer, right? And it doesn't mean it's perfect by any means. And it doesn't mean you're still not going to have challenging times. But I think you're settled a little bit more. And I will say too, like, I think in general, we get that a little bit more with wisdom and time in our age. But someone there's lots of young entrepreneurs, and this is what I would tell them is like, don't get too bought up in the highs and lows. Try to find your balance in the middle, because there are always going to be highs and lows, but you don't have to make them high and low in your life. Even though they might appear like that objectively, you can stay steady through the whole thing. Does that answer your question?
Oh, spot on. And you actually pinpointed something I think really critical, which is this concept of identity. And if you tie your identity so much into that success and then it's not going well, indeed, right? The fall just seems to be that much greater. And this actually really links to what I'm seeing with a number of people, myself included, actually, when they're transitioning from that corporate world to entrepreneurship, is your identity is so closely tied to what you've been doing for 20 years. That now people seeing you as something else is almost like, can they see me this way? Right? Who am I to ... Right? I remember Mike and I would joke around, who are we to start a podcast? Right? But like, why not?
Why not? Exactly.
Why not? But your identity is not that, right? It's not a podcaster. It's the people we were in the corporate world, and now as we are as entrepreneurs. And so shifting that identity and being comfortable with that is a big piece of, I think, a lot of the things that you've just identified, also in, just staying grounded, who you are, and knowing who you are at your core, that's not necessarily tied to, this corporate person. And that I think is certainly for me personally, has been a big source of that freedom, and allowing myself to just explore and do other things and not worry so much about, is it going to be successful or super successful, or is it, well, who cares? Right now I'm in adventure mode, and I'm testing, I'm trying, and let's see what happens. Right. And let's see where all of this goes. So,
and I'm sure you see this a lot in what you do, Marissa, and Mike, you too, in your experiences with mentoring, is we tell people often, like, be authentic, right? Be authentic. But that's easy to say, but people need to know, well, what does that actually mean for me? Like, what is my authenticity? Well, who am I, right? Like, what do I actually represent, and what do I believe? All these things. It's easy to say be authentic, but young people don't know yet. Like, they're literally trying to build that. So in these conversations I have with young people, usually, even this is not even entrepreneurs just looking to break into the pharma industry. It's like, we always say, like, when they're preparing for interviews, I'm like, be yourself, because you'll be the best version when you're yourself. Like, we'll see the best of you when you're yourself. And that's true through our whole lives. Right. And so as an entrepreneur, if you can stay authentic, to your point, it just means that you'll enter into every conversation, every business opportunity in an excited way, because you're just doing it from you, not doing it about like, ooh, if I talk to this person, that person may say something to this person, that person might call me for business. If that's how you think, you've missed the point. Like, in my mind, it's about, you just need to be authentic, and you're just meeting people. And if you're truly in that place, you're looking for it in others. Like, you literally talk to people and like, you just want them to be their complete, normal, like, comfortable selves, and you'll do whatever you can to get them there, because that's when real stuff happens. That's when exciting things happen, business or not. It's just literally like, that's where you learn and get the most out of those conversations.
Mm-hmm. That, your comments around authenticity are so important. And also, reflecting back that it is a journey, right? We talk about, and lots of people talk about leadership journeys and understanding where you are in the journey. is important, but recognizing that you don't always really know where you are until you've gone through a certain stage where you can reflect back and say, "Oh, I was going through that at the time." And so authenticity is something that builds. There's I believe that there's a certain amount of confidence that you have in order to really be authentic, because you have to feel good about who you are, and to be able to really, kind of peel things back and understand who you are, for the purposes of maintaining the things you like, and then understanding the things that you would like to grow or change or evolve from, and then having a pathway to that. But one of the things that has occurred for me in mentoring younger people, the older I get, because the gap starts to be quite large.
Doesn't matter.
And quite frankly, it's starting to get harder and harder to remember what it was like when I was younger. But all that aside, you don't have to have all the answers today. Part of the experience is the learning. You will know more one day, and it doesn't mean you have to know it all today. But being on the journey to learn more, being curious, to your earlier comment around lifting your head up, like, these are things we can encourage people to do. And they will have varying degrees of interest or capability, right? I mean, I think once people start to express an interest to do something, you're now on a path to help them. But if they don't, it's okay too, right? Like, I think that's the other part. Like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to be something until you're ready to be something, or maybe never. I don't know. It's interesting. Anyways, that was, I love that part of the dialogue. It's so critical for people to understand, I think.
And it is a good point that you make, Mike. Like, it's a journey. Like, it's you become more authentic just by nature, because you learn about yourself more as you get older, essentially, as you go through these older and through experience. And to your point, I would just say, just allow yourself the most amount of experiences that you can have that allow you to learn more about where do you stand with these things? What do you think is true? What do you want to do in this situation? What would you do differently? But until you go through some experiences and have these conversations with people, you don't know, right? You just don't know yet until you're kind of put to the test, or at least put in situations where, like, yeah, what would I have done there? Or really interesting what they did. I like what they did. That resonates with me. That you start to kind of build out your authenticity, who you are, right? And I mean, that's human nature, which is so great, which is we're not designed to do it alone. We're designed to do it with people, right? Whether that's, with family, of course, with community, with industry community, with your colleagues, all of it. It all helps shape us, right?
Without question. We're starting to get to that part where we usually ask our guests, is there anything that we haven't asked about that you feel is germane to our discussion today that you'd like to speak about?
I mean, this has been such a lovely discussion, and it's so fun because I think, I know you both well enough that, we're very similar in how we kind of view things. I would just say, like, in general, I just want people to know, especially if you're on that cusp of deciding to do something on your own and becoming an entrepreneur. I've said this to many people. I'm going to say it here again, and it shouldn't be a surprise, but, like, I just say, do it. Like, do it, because if it's already in your thoughts and in your gut that you might want to try it, it means you should. In my mind, it means you should try it. Doesn't mean it'll be successful. Doesn't mean it'll be something you do forever. But I think you should honor that feeling and honor that idea and give it a shot, because, I think it's Mark Twain that said it. You regret the things that you didn't do. You don't regret the things that you did do. Right? So do it and see what happens. Give it your all, do what you can with it, make it, enjoy yourself, figure out what success is to you, and then live with it, right? Like, live what happens from that. And it can be like the start of something amazing. It could be start something and then take you in a total another trajectory. But I would say, my last thought on sort of entrepreneurship in general is that if you're thinking about it, it's already a yes. You should already do it.
Well, thank you for that, Jen. And you're certainly an inspiration to many, myself included, in your own journey. So I think those are really, really great words to close by. So yes, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Mike, any final words from your end?
Nope. Take us home, Marissa.
Well, fantastic.
Thank you so much. I just say thank you to both. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I love this conversation.
Well, we've loved we've loved having you here too, and looking forward to everybody. Want to say big thank you to everybody who's who's listened to the podcast. Keep joining us for amazing, great stories such as Jen's, and looking forward to having you again soon. So thank you.